Hey guys, it's your host Julian. This week I'm sitting down with Bob's Burger storyboard artist Paul Claerhout. I want to give a special shout out to all the patrons that help support this podcast. Bill, Brent, Eight-Legged Bird, Jacob, Jordan, and Monique. Thank you all so much for your support. It truly means a lot. If you want to become a member of our Patreon channel to help support this channel and get all of these episodes early and ad-free, follow the link below and sign up today. Now, let's get to that chat with Paul. Oh no, thank you, man. Ladies and gentlemen, we're talking Bob's Burgers, one of the greatest shows of all time. It's definitely a comfort show these last couple years. If anybody needs anything comforting, it's Bob's Burgers, man. This show from start to finish, every character, it just feels like a warm blanket when you put it on when you watch this, man. So I would love to know, taking a step back, you come on season two, in the middle of season two. How do you come about Bob's? Were you a fan of the first season when it came out? Did you know anything about it? How do you
I
get
had
on?
never seen the show before. I had a couple friends that were working on the show already. And then one of the producers called me from the show and said, "Hey, I need another storyboard artist. You came recommended. Are you available?" And I said, "Yeah, sure." And he goes, "I need you to start tomorrow."
Ooh.
And I hadn't worked in several weeks, so I was kind of a little hard up for work at the time. And I said, "I'll be there." And at the time, I was living in Orange County, just south of LA, and the job was way up in Burbank. So I had to commute the first couple of years all the way from Orange County to Burbank every day, which is about a 180-mile round trip in LA traffic.
That is miserable. I was stationed in San Diego for a little while, so that traffic is hellish.
Yeah.
Um, with that being said, did you have to, obviously if you're starting the next day, you didn't have a test at all? You didn't have to do a board
No,
test or pencil
this is
test?
one of the few jobs I didn't do a test for. And usually to work on Bob's, they have you do a test, but for some reason I snuck in under the wire.
So when you come on board, what's that first day like? Obviously you never had seen the show before, so you're new to the style for Lauren and everybody else that was developing this, him and Jim. So what was it like trying to adapt that style and work under the Bob's banner?
First day or so, I was just trying to practice drawing the characters.
Mhm.
Luckily, um, we have the characters models in a library that we can pull from. They have turnarounds of the characters, and they want us to use that so we can use the heads, rough out the body with the model underneath as we draw it for, make sure we get it proportions
Mhm.
correctly and all that. And then you can just modify the head model uh, for, mouth open, eyeball looking this way, head tilted like that. So it wasn't that hard to, catch on to drawing it once you were told that. But
Yeah.
yeah, I had a hard time actually just drawing the characters freehand at first. And I'm thinking, oh God, this is going to take me a while to get used to these characters because they were so different from what I'd worked on before.
What were you coming from before Bob's?
Just before Bob's, I worked on a Pink Panther Christmas special.
Mhm.
And before that, I had been working on Planet Sheen,
Oh
which was a
yeah.
Jimmy Neutron spinoff, and Back at the Barnyard
hmm
for Nickelodeon.
Yeah, that's pretty three. That's I mean, there's a little bit of similarity, I guess, as far as the style goes between Planet Sheen and Barnyard. I mean, it's some similar,
Yeah,
you know what I mean?
yeah,
I mean, obviously you're doing farm animals and you're doing humans in that one, but
yeah,
Bob's like I said, completely different. So
yeah.
one of the things that I love asking, man, is when somebody's coming onto a show and learning a new style, learning a new show, it's those characters. Those characters are the first people or first things that most people try to get into. Who was some of those harder characters to really flesh out? Did any of them stick out?
Not really. They were all, it was difficult to get a handle on the style of the comedy because it's very low key and subtle
hmm
acting that they
Yeah.
want. There's not a lot of big cartoony action at all. In fact, they really don't want you to do cartoony looking action. They
hmm
want you to do like real subtle acting, almost like it's a Wes Anderson live action
Yeah.
film. Whereas, Jimmy Neutron and Barnyard had really wacky, uh, cartoony animation. And plus, since it was a CGI show, you didn't have to be perfectly on model with your storyboards. For Bob's, we had to be perfectly on model for the boards because the animation uh, company that uh, they follow your boards exactly. They use them as a layout.
Mhm. Now, when you're working on this show, I've had I liken this one a lot to King of the Hill, and obviously Jim Dotrieve had a huge part in King of the Hill, being the head writer for that one. The writing on both of those shows is just so amazing. The artwork, I mean, there's nothing that I don't like about King of the Hill or Bob's Burgers, from the animation, the voices to the writing. Did they give you guys any like leeway in the storyboard department to come up with gags, or is that all 100% driven by the writer's room?
It is driven by the writers' room. We have to stick. I mean, we can if we come up with an idea, we can shoot it by them.
Mhm.
So it's not totally closed off, but it's we're sticking pretty close to the boards the whole time.
Now, when you came to Bob's, was that the first time that you're coming to a writing-driven show? I mean, I can't imagine, was Jimmy board-driven or artist-driven?
No, that was writer driven too.
Yeah,
Nickelodeon was very fastidious about sticking to the scripts. I mean, again, you could suggest stuff, but
Mhm.
it had to be approved by the writers and the
Yeah,
producers.
got you. Now, so when you come on, what's the first episode? Obviously, you gave me, ladies and gentlemen, we're going to talk about three episodes in particular: Beefsquatch, the Equestranauts, and then Some Like a Pod Part One and Two. But you remember the first episode you came on?
Don't remember the first episode, but Beef Squash was an early one. It was, I think, from second season.
Yeah, I think it's like
Yeah,
fuck, probably like
one of the
three.
first ones I worked on.
It's a funny one, and I love, because I've been like I said, I've told you before we hit record, I've been rewatching this one with my family. And what I love about this one is there's so many lines, like you were talking about, that subtle humor, but then it's
Yeah.
just like outright humor. And probably my favorite line, doing this rewatch, probably my favorite line in the entire season three was when, Bob's running out of the shower because they call him in there. They've got the
Mhm.
celebrity chef, the TV segment for the cooking part. And he goes, "Yeah, I don't really want to be a celebrity chef." He's like, "Oh, whoa, look at Rachel Ray over here." And he's like, "With bigger hips." When Luis hit him with the bigger hips line, saying he had bigger hips than Rachel Ray. It's one of those snort laughter type of things. I
Mhm.
love the dynamic that the family has with each other. The humor in this one is like second to none.
Yeah.
Um, do you remember anything about working on Beef Squatch?
Not a whole lot. I think it was that episode. There's a funny story about Eugene Merman, who does the voice of Gene,
Mhm.
ad-libbed a line, and I think it was for that episode.
Yeah.
And it was a little bit too risque for the show, but we tried to leave it in there.
Mhm.
And it was left in all the way through the animatic stage. And it was a really funny ad lib line. Eventually, it had to get replaced with a safer line, but
Do you remember the ad lib line?
it was something about Gene said something about somebody having to go to a methadone clinic, and it just fit with what was going on in the scene. And just the fact that he's Gene as a kid saying that it was one of those things where we like snort your drink out your nose when you hear it.
Did you
And it was
get
a total
to?
ad lib. I mean, no one expected that to be, a take that would go in or make it to final cut.
God, that's so funny.
But it almost made it to final cut as much as I can remember.
Do you know if something like that, if they would have done, obviously it almost made it to Final Cut. So do you know if something like that would it be around, I guess? Would somebody have that as far as maybe one of the writers, the executives guys, or anything like that? Or is that something that's typically scrapped?
Uh, oh, I have no idea. And someone may have kept it, maybe an editor or something might have kept it, a copy, but I have no idea. I haven't heard or seen the clip since then.
Editors out there,
There might be a storyboard animatic with the line in it floating around somewhere.
ladies and
If
gentlemen, we need to
somebody
see it.
has that, please let me know. I'd love to see it again.
Oh, I would love to see it for the first time. I mean,
Yeah.
that's fantastic. Um, Yeah, obviously this one sticks out for so many reasons. Obviously, like I said, you see this is the one where you kind of start to see, the dynamic. You see a young Bob and Gene and you see an old Gene and Bob, you know what I mean? So you see that
Mhm.
dichotomy so I love this one just because of the play with them. You start to see that more so. Every character has their moment in the sun with Bob and Linda and everybody, but there's something fun about just Gene and Bob going back and forth. And when they have the throwdown eventually to they get Luis involved to try to set each other up so one would win. It was just a fun episode from start to finish. Now, when you're coming in for season two, are they bouncing you around? Like I know you said there was a couple teams, so they bounce you around team to team to find out where you fit, or were you already set up?
They put me on a team with this one director, um, and I stayed with her for a couple years. But usually, when you finish up an episode, there's a week or two in between till your team starts on the next episode.
Mhm.
So I would help out on revisions for other episodes. So back then, I used to work on almost every episode, um, at least, doing a revisions or extra scenes or something. Uh, uh, but now they have the schedule a little bit different. So we usually launch directly from one episode into another. So I rarely get to work on. There might be a few days where they'll throw me in the revision team for a while, but um, yeah. But before we used to work, I used to work on pretty much every episode for at least for a little bit, a week or two in between.
Was there any of the characters when you were bouncing around on a lot of the episodes for revision? Was there any of the characters that you really loved, just to work with?
Uh, I I guess I like Tina a lot. I
Yeah.
think she's funny. She has a lot of really fun poses.
Hmm.
I can kind of relate with her kind of shy demeanor and stuff. Um, and it's pretty much close to maybe second or third season, they came up with this idea of when she runs, her hands just
Yes.
hang down by her sides,
Yeah.
like real awkward looking run. I thought was really funny.
It is. Do you have any kid? Do you have kids?
No, no.
Okay, so it's funny. When we're watching this, we pick out which one is which. So our
Uh,
oldest one, obviously, he like we're watching. I'm like, I look over. I'm like, oh my God, Hayden, you're Tina. And he's watching. He's like, no, I'm not. I was like, yes, you are. And then it's going by some of the shit she would do. And like, you do that, you do that. You're really weird in that
yeah,
aspect. That's you 100%. We'll pick out the other two kids that we have. We'll be like, oh, well, she's Luis one day, and then he's Gene the
yeah,
next day, type of thing.
yeah,
But it's really cool picking out these traits and these similarities that you see in these characters, and then putting them into like real world
yeah.
expectations.
And
Um,
Tina's little anxiety tick where she gets a,
yeah. Uh, uh.
I get that too sometimes.
There's so many things in here that seem like it's so personal. Like when you told me it was like all writer or written or writer driven, excuse me. I was like, shit, man, it just seems like a lot of this stuff like, it's like ad lib, what you're talking about with Eugene and the methadone clinic. A lot of this stuff just seems so witty and so quick. There's like, oh, they had to do that in there when they were doing the table reads and stuff like that. Now with the table reads in particular, did you get to sit on any of them?
Yeah, yeah. We up until the pandemic shut down, we had table reads on a regular basis.
Is any one table read, maybe a moment or a joke or anything like that stick out?
Yeah, there was a table read where we had Cloris Leachman come in,
Hmm.
um, and she's there in person and all that, and she had led a couple things that were really funny. I don't remember if they. I don't think there were things that ended up in the final show, but she did a couple ad libs, and she has this very dry sense of humor, kind of like Bob Newhart,
Hmm.
and usually the creator of the show reads the narration and fills in any like other guest character voices, and she got a kind of gave him some shit during the tape. Just kidding around, of course, but that was one that really stood out to me. And it was really funny and fun to see a big star like that in person.
Out of all the actors that voice this, the main cast in particular, who is like the hardest one to not laugh at whenever they're in character?
Oh gosh. Yeah, they're some of them are really different when they go into character. Like Kristen Shaw, that's her real voice, really. She really talks like that. But of course, when she's doing Louise, it's more of a, takes on that little kid character. Um, and John Roberts, yeah, he really does sound. Yeah, they all actually sound like the characters. Um, I'm blanking on his name. That does Tina right now.
Oh shit.
Yeah,
Don't judge us, ladies and gentlemen. The weed's kicking in on
yeah,
my
yeah.
side, so
I'm old. I blank on people's names all the time.
blame it on the weed, not my heart.
But yeah, his voice is very quiet, and they have to put a microphone right up on him so that you can hear him in the room. Um,
Dan Mitz.
and some of the other voices are they're occasionally there, but in person, but they're usually on a phone call. So you hear them in the
Hmm.
table read, but they're not there. And that's John Benjamin is, I guess he's based in New York.
Hmm.
John Roberts used to be in town. He used to be there every time, but then he moved to New York. So now he's usually on the phone. But usually most of the other people are there. Um, and then there's a couple character actors that do different characters. Um, Shoot, I'm blanking on his name now too. Does the voice for Mr. Frond. He does a lot of character voices on the show.
David Herman.
Dave, yeah,
I got the
and
list pulled up, Paul. It was Dan Mintz for Tina. I
Dan
knew it
Mint.
was Dan,
Thank
but I
you.
couldn't remember the last name.
Yeah, yeah. Um, and there's another woman comedian that does a lot of character voices. I can't think of her name right now, too. And I love it when she does voices because it's just her voice and the way she talks when she's doing the characters is real funny. It just makes her voice just makes the character funny. And
Yeah.
she does characters for us frequently.
Hmm.
Uh, so I'm always delighted when she does a voice for us. And I'm sorry I can't think of her name right now, but
It'll come to you as soon as we hit
yeah,
end. As soon as we stop the recording, it always does.
yeah.
Um, you you know, with that being said, man, there's another episode that that you had mentioned that you had worked on that you wanted to talk about too was the Equestranauts. This
Yeah.
episode, I had to explain to my wife Katie, what they were doing the bronies, right? For My Little Ponies, but for
Hmm.
for the bros. And she's like, "Yeah, but they don't really do that, do they?" I'm like, "No, no, there's like a whole sub like when you go to Comic-Con, there's like a whole culture for it, or the bronies that
Yeah.
are really into My Little Ponies." And I was like, "That's what they're playing on with this one. This was what they're
Hmm.
referencing." But this one is so fun because skipping towards the end of to the end of this episode, Bob obviously gets a tattoo. Bob has to infiltrate the bronies or the Equestranauts, the culture, and he's going there undercover, and then he ends up getting a tattoo for Tina to get back this her prized possession that she's had since she was little. And then at the end of the episode, she's packing it away. She's like, "Yeah, I think I've kind of outgrown." He's like, "No, no, you have not. You have not outgrown that. Play with it, Tina." And then he's like, "Oh, okay." So play with it, Tina. So she's playing and shit like that. So it's little things like that are just so fucking outlandish and weird, right? But you guys
Uh,
find a way to give it so much heart and so much meaning behind it. Why did this episode in particular mean so much and stand out to you?
uh, just because I find that whole convention culture just kind of weirdly funny.
Yeah.
Especially for stuff like that. And it kind of reminded me, um, on the furry thing. Are you familiar with the
Yeah.
furry?
Yeah.
I worked with a guy who he was not a furry, but he was obsessed with furries. He thought they were just hilarious.
Hmm.
He would look at these videos on YouTube about furries all the time at work and just be laughing about that stuff. And it reminded me of that whole scene.
Yeah.
So I think that's why I kind of find it so funny.
Yeah, it's one of those episodes, like I said, you just see, being a dad, you see like that dad going to bat for their kid, doing anything and everything they
Hmm.
can for the kid. And there was so much more than in all these episodes. Like I said, it's like the humor is there. It's always there. The heart is always there. No matter how much they dislike each other in that specific moment, you always see them come back around and that family unit's really tied in. I mean, I don't want to
Hmm.
get on a high horse or, my soapbox and say, oh man, the frickin' morality of the show is so fantastic
Yeah.
because Gene's talking about methadone clinics, God damn it, you know what I mean? But it's
Hmm.
like I said, that center focus of that being family, of being united at the end of it's
Bob's trying to
always
be a
there.
good dad, you know? He's
Yeah,
really trying to be a good dad.
and that's something that every day, like me, I'll go through all that shit. Like, fuck, I shouldn't have
Hmm.
yelled. Maybe I should have like explained that a little bit better. Maybe I shouldn't have
Yeah,
done this.
yeah.
Maybe I shouldn't have done that. So you see that in a character, and you're like, all right, well, I'm not that bad, I guess. I'm not saying
Hmm.
Bob's a bad dad, but it's like, oh, okay, I did that one. Okay, we're gonna fuck up. You know what I mean? It
Hmm.
happens. But like I said, I love, like I said, I love the interplay with these characters, and that it's
Yeah,
always
I think
coming back to
Bob's
them.
my other favorite character on the show that I can really relate to.
Dude, he's
Um,
hard not to relate.
yeah, because a lot of times he'll be doing the type stuff, and I'm thinking, yeah, I'd be doing that too.
I will say, so my day job, I work in the kitchen, and
Hmm.
I feel a kinship to Bob, right? Because there's moments that he has and interacts with people, whether it's the health inspectors, whether
Yeah,
it's the customers. You're like, oh shit, I wonder how many people that wrote this episode or drew this episode worked in the industry, because
yeah,
there's so many like nuances that I don't think most people would pick up, and it's just like that's like fucking day-to-day stuff when you're in a
yeah,
kitchen. You know what I mean?
yeah. I worked
So
in the kitchen a long time ago too for a
yeah.
while. Yeah,
Did you make burgers or what'd you
yeah,
do?
yeah.
Yeah.
Hmm.
How much did that lend to you animating and storyboarding on this show, though? I have to imagine like, no, you probably wouldn't do that. The wrist wouldn't move that way. Did any of that old stuff come back to you at all?
Yeah, a little bit.
Yeah.
Actually, they're really picky about, like if Bob's cooking burgers, how he's holding the spatula and how he flips stuff and all that. He has a
How
certain way
come?
of doing it.
Did they ever mention why?
No, it's just the way they want it. And I guess maybe, the folks in charge, maybe they did that work themselves and that's how they did it. I
They're
don't
paying
know.
homage to it. Yeah, they
Yeah,
want to make
maybe
sure it's done
so.
right.
Yeah.
Yeah, they want any stolen valor when it comes to burger flipping.
Yeah.
Um,
We have to draw the spatula just right. You have to look at the model drawing of the spatula and make sure it's on model and all that. So
this might be a deep cuts question. It might be a little bit hard to answer too, but with you coming on in season two, did you get a Bible right away? I have to
yeah.
assume you did. How
Hmm.
much has that Bible grown, since season two? I mean, I have to imagine they add and probably take away
Yeah,
stuff every
the
year.
characters have changed a lot
Yeah.
since I started on the show. Whenever I see an episode from season two, or especially from season one, it looks totally different.
Hmm.
Totally different. I did the same thing on The Simpsons.
Yeah.
Um, and like every couple of years, they make little subtle adjustments to the characters, make them a little more drawable, a little more cuter, and
Hmm.
more appealing, I think.
Was there any do's or don'ts that stuck out to you the most whenever you're flipping through that?
Yeah, they have very specific notes about what the characters can and can't do.
Yeah.
They can't, tilt their heads certain ways, or they have to blink their eyes a certain way and stuff like that. Mouths have to be shaped a certain way. Um, we get called on smiles a lot. They don't want the characters to smile unless they're specifically laughing or saying something in a really smiley way. Um, Even I've gotten notes where the mouth is drawn downturned, but they say, no, it's smiling there. take that out. It's like, it's not smiling. I have to redraw it like for really downturn. Make sure it doesn't look like he's at all smiling.
They ever say why no smiling unless they're,
Oh, that's
doing
just
what
the
you were
way they
saying?
want it. They want that
Yeah,
kind of dry sense of humor. So
gotcha. Gotcha. Um, Now with the next one, obviously this is a two-parter. We had talked a little bit before, we hit record. You said this one was really hard just because the backgrounds and the artwork and everything like
mhm.
this, everything like that. But it's Some Like It Bots Part 1 and 2, ladies and gentlemen. This is the Blade Runner. One was the season 13. Was it 13? I think it was 13, the last two
13, yeah,
episodes.
maybe either 12 or
Yeah.
13.
Yeah, it's one of those two. It's very recent, the last 2 years or give or take.
Yeah,
Um,
we worked on
I
that last year. So, because I was
This
with a
one's beautiful.
different team,
Beautiful.
different director. Yeah, it looks great. And that was fun to work on. Only worked on the second half,
Mhm.
but yeah, because I like science fiction movies and stuff. I'm a big Trekkie and all that.
Yeah.
So, yeah, it was great to work on that. It was just difficult because, you had a lot of backgrounds that weren't finished out yet, and a lot of little effects work in it and stuff. And the whole show takes place in locations that you don't usually use for the show.
Yeah. What was the hardest part? Obviously, you said the backgrounds weren't finished yet, so you're trying to play with the not knowing what's going to look like and everything like that. You play with the environment and whatnot. But what was the
Yeah,
hardest part about this episode?
just laying out where the characters are in scenes that
Yeah.
take place in the fantasy environment. Um, um, for that episode, I was working mostly on the B story stuff that was in the restaurant.
Hmm.
So, uh, um, but I did get to work a little bit on some of the other sequences. And you're working with a really roughed in background. Frequently, you don't have the final background art yet. Um, and then you have to go back in and revise a lot of stuff once you get the final backgrounds. Um, and a lot of times you have to kind of really just rough in sequences like that until you get the layout of the background worked out.
Was there any one scene that you got to work on or any sequence that you got to work on that sticks out more than the others?
I worked a little bit on the final scene where the kids were uh, shooting at each other. Or no, it was Tina had to go in and sneak out of the robot thing.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's what it was. Yeah.
They're all
So
getting
yeah,
their minds wiped and she's jumping over and
yeah.
out.
Hmm.
Yeah, that
Yeah.
was a cool little way to end it with the dancing. And then it's like, oh, they're still unique in their own ways, even though they're robotic. So it was a little
Yeah.
happy ending to something that was a little sad.
Yeah. And there was a big pull out where they're like in a robot factory and
Hmm.
stuff. Yeah, I worked on that.
Lights are going on. It looks like a rave.
Yeah.
Everybody's dancing and shit
Hmm.
like that. Yeah,
Yeah. Yeah.
this one was a lot of fun because you get to see, like I said, what you guys do so well at this show is you guys take like real life things. Like I'm pretty sure everybody can remember being picked on in school or made to feel less than. Even probably as an adult right now, somebody's probably being made to feel less than right now. And then you guys spin that into a way where it's a little bit easy to digest and you're like, "Oh shit." By the end of the episode, you realize like, you can't really control what people say or what people think about you. You can only control how you react to it. And that was that whole, spiel and speech that Bob and Linda both gave them with her and Tammy and all the other shit that was going on in that episode. I feel like you guys ride that line between reality and not reality, I guess, whatever you want to call this, cartoon animation, very well. This show, I don't even know how to really put it into words. I mean, it's perfect in a sense. When you think about obviously you've been on it for 13 seasons now.
Hmm.
What's the first thought that comes to your mind when somebody said, "Oh, you worked on Bob's"? What's like the first thought that comes to your mind when everybody brings up Bob's Burgers?
It's the best show I've ever worked on.
Hmm.
Um, it's one of the few shows that I enjoy watching. If I'm flipping channels around and oh, it's Sunday night, Bob, there's Bob's, and
Hmm.
what episode was that? And it's like I'll watch it and I'll think it's funny and enjoy watching it. And usually with every other show I've worked on, I'm you're like, oh, they changed that, or that scene didn't work the way I wanted to. But with Bob's, it's like it all comes out exactly like we boarded it,
Hmm.
and then it's like really refreshing to see it all finished out with in color and with any special effects that might be added and all that. It's kind of a thrill to see it that way.
I have to imagine. And when you sit there and because we talked some shows, a little bit earlier about what you came from before you got to this one. Now, obviously, I want to see you. I'm pretty sure you'd like to stay on it too until it's done. I want to see you on it until it's done. I like seeing you guys' names
Yeah,
whenever I have you
I'm
on here. I like
hoping
seeing you
to
guys' names.
keep me working for at least a couple more years.
Now, we need Bob's for like another 15, 20 years. Bob doesn't need to go away whatsoever. If The Simpsons can do
Yeah,
35, Bob can do 35 for sure.
I hope so.
Um, I hope so too, man. Like I said, this show is a lot of fun, and it really feels like everybody that works on the show is having fun. I've watched so many shows where I can look and like, oh man, it just doesn't feel like they give a shit. You know what I mean? Bob's, it feels
Hmm.
like everybody cares, from the writing to the
Yeah.
acting to the animation to the art. It just
Hmm.
feels like everybody is a fan. Like you said, you're flipping through and you stop on an episode like, oh, really like the way that one come out. It feels like everybody's a fan with
Hmm.
this show that works on it. With that being said, is there anything that you've picked up, while working on Bob's that you'll have it in your everyday career from now on? Is it a technique or a way to approach a scene? Does anything stick out like that to you?
Yeah, well, really, it's just an overall improvement of my understanding of storyboarding and cinematic language and working on a team and just trying to make a really good show. On
Mhm.
Bob's, some people get really frustrated doing revising sequences, and we revise sequences a lot on Bob's all the way through productions, even after the storyboards are done. They go back and they rewrite and fix scenes and redo scenes, even after they're animated, all the way up until air date.
Mhm.
And I think that's why the show's been done so well, is they're really trying to, people who don't like to do revisions, you got to remember everybody's just trying to make the show as good as possible by
Oh yeah.
air date. And I think with this show, it shows.
That it does, man. And
Yeah.
we appreciate, as fans of Bob's Burgers, appreciates how hard you guys work on this, because there's not going to be another show like Bob's, man. This one encapsulated. It's like I said, start to finish. There hasn't been one episode that I've ever watched that I have not enjoyed.
Hmm.
There's some characters that I don't like in comparison to other characters. You know what I mean? But you guys make you not like who likes Jimmy Pesto for real?
Yeah.
Everybody doesn't like Jimmy Pesto. You know what I mean? But you like
Yeah.
him in a sense.
Uh-huh.
But these, like I said, the characters are fun, the story's fun, the art is beautiful, the writing is top notch. From start to finish, it's a perfect show for me. As we start to wind down, there are a couple more questions I'd like to ask. The last one on Bob's, though, before we rotate into a couple other things, was when you think about Bob's, is there one word that comes to mind when you think about the time that you've spent in this universe for the last 13 seasons?
Oh, one word.
Or if you had to go into a sentence or anything like that,
Yeah.
or
I just have to say it's been an excellent learning experience, and it continues to be an excellent
Hmm.
learning experience. I don't feel like I'm stagnating working on the show. I feel like I'm always improving and at least trying to get better at what I do.
Mhm.
So that's what I like. It's challenging and rewarding. So
That's a good spot to be in, man. Um, Now, one thing you brought up during our email chat was a comic you were working on, a graphic novel. I
yeah,
told you in the email, I love the artwork on this one. You just
thank.
told me before we hit record that the color copies are in now. Make
Hmm.
sure, ladies and gentlemen, you go down below and click on the website links to go and purchase this book. Don't do it through anybody other than his website. The artwork is outstanding in this from the pages you sent me. I was enthralled right away. Been waiting for the color one to come out. With that
I have
being said, man,
I
how
have a
does this one
promo
compare?
video. I have a promo video of it up on YouTube too, if people want to
Okay.
look at it.
Where can they find that? Which one is this one on?
Called the Dragon Skull promo video,
Okay. We'll have
and
a link to that one in the
yeah,
description as well.
okay.
So how does this comic come to be, man? Obviously, you did some of the Bob's Burgers comics as well. Do you just want to take a step out and do something on your own? How does this one come to be?
I had this pro. I've been working on this project since the 1980s.
Hmm.
I originally did it as a illustrated novelette. Um, had no luck in getting it published. Then I redid it as a animated film proposal. Even had a voice cast picked out for it, and almost got. I made a little promotional video for that back in the day with some animation, and that never got off the ground. And then I thought, well, I'll do it as a graphic novel, and tried a few different versions of it, trying to figure out an art style. And then around the time of the pandemic, I had a lot of spare time to work on it. So that's when I was able to finish the black and white edition
Hmm.
that I had. And then during the writer's strike last fall, I was laid off for a few months and I banged out the color edition. So that's out now. Just recently got it from the printers a few weeks ago.
Oh, like I said, ladies and gentlemen, make sure you follow the links below and go and click and buy it. Buy it from his website. Please help support our artists that come on here talk about Bob's and his local work. The other things you had brought up, man, you've got a couple YouTube channels that you're working on now too.
Yes.
Those links will be in below. We got DFW Rock Show. Let's start with that one first, man. What can
Okay.
people expect on that one?
My brother and I, when we were teenagers, used to sneak our 8 millimeter home movie camera into rock concerts and film little segments of them. And recently had those digitized and put them up on YouTube.
Hmm.
And had immediately got contacted by some other collectors who they dub audio from bootleg live recordings and sync it up to home movie sequences like that. So they wanted to do a couple of our films because we had really good footage for Led Zeppelin,
Hmm.
Kiss, Queen, Rush, and
God
a
damn.
bunch of other bands.
All the
Yeah,
big ones.
yeah. So our Led Zeppelin footage is spectacular. In fact, somebody recently stole some of our footage for the Bon Jovi documentary show that was recently on.
They give you
Uh,
credit at least?
no, didn't ask,
What
didn't
a
give us credit,
dirtbag.
didn't pay us. Yeah. One of the other collectors sent us the clip and said, "Hey, is this your footage?" And I go, "Yep, that's our footage." And
Should
would
knock on
never have
that
known if
guy's.
they hadn't caught it.
Oh man, somebody needs to
And
reach out to them.
yeah, well, it's only a few, like 3 seconds, so it's not worth hassling over.
I'm sure they got a credit section on the
But
bottom of that. They could at least
yeah, it would
say,
have been nice if they'd asked us. I would have let them use it if it was just a couple seconds. But yeah, so they dubbed audio into our Led Zeppelin footage. Our Rush footage has audio. Someone recently did the Kiss footage, and now I'm waiting for someone to do the Queen footage. I got a test clip from that, and it looks amazing.
yeah,
Um, and we had footage from Aerosmith and Thin Lizzy too. So I'm hoping somebody will want to dub in audio to those because they just these clips really come alive when
yeah,
they have audio to them. And since they're short clips, they're able to sync it up perfect. It looks like it's the actual audio.
that's so cool. That's
Yeah,
so cool, man. I'm a huge Queen fan. I've been a Queen fan since I was a little guy. That was something my
saw them
mom always
twice
had
and
play.
filmed both concerts.
Oh man, what was it
So
like?
They were terrific live. They had a
Yeah.
really good audio engineer at the show, so the sound was perfect. Um, uh, the second time we saw them, Thin Lizzy was the opening act,
Hmm.
so that was just an all-around great show. Um, uh, the Zeppelin concert we went to, we lucked out and got fourth row center seats for that. So
Great
we have
seats.
shots in there of this close on Robert Plant, and that's the only footage from that concert that exists.
That's insane.
Nothing was recorded or filmed from that concert. It was the first concert on that tour, um, and yeah, our footage came out beautifully. And
Dude, that's so
um,
insane to think that you got a piece of history for some of the biggest bands of
yeah,
all
I wish
time.
we had shot more. I really wish we had shot more. But they were getting the security would like get hassle you if they saw you with a movie camera and stuff like that. So we could quit bringing it because
Now that's
it was
all you
kind of
see
a
at
hassle.
concerts.
I don't know if you know how actually I have the camera here. This is the
Hmm.
camera we used. It's not dissimilar to the camera that was used for the Kennedy assassination.
Yeah, the Zapruder films.
Same
I was gonna
age.
bring it up.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I don't know if you know how 8 millimeter film works. It comes on a reel
Hmm.
of 16 millimeter film that runs for about a minute, and then you have to flip it over and shoot the other side. And then when you get the film process, they slice it in half and put it
Yeah.
on one reel. So it's kind of a hassle to kind of open the camera in the middle of a concert and flip the film over and make sure it's loaded up properly, all that. Uh,
Well, hopefully one day from now when somebody does, it's got to be out there. They do it for everything, but documentaries on greatest bands of all time or,
mm,
three biggest touring bands of all time, something along those lines. Hopefully somebody out there to do the right thing and they'll contact you, say, "Hey, can we use your footage? Because you're the only guy that has footage of this." That'd be really cool to see one day, man.
yeah, yeah, yeah. I hope so. I mean, if anyone wants any of our footage for a documentary, we're glad to talk to you about it.
Make sure you check those links below, ladies and gentlemen. We'll get some stuff in there for you guys to contact. So if you guys are interested, make sure you reach out. And then the other one was the home movie matinee.
Yeah,
That was the other channel.
that one has some old animation of mine from the
Mhm.
80s and 90s, some old DNA Productions demos. It's got some home movies, some student films I did, back when I was going back to a guy when I was in high school.
Mhm.
So just fun stuff like that. There's some storyboard animatics from Jimmy Neutron and some other shows that I worked on.
Right on. And I hate to bring it back to this real quick, but I'd have to ask: Do you know was it you that worked on the methadone clip for Gene, or was that a different board artist?
Uh,
Do you remember the board artist that worked on that one?
I might have worked on it. I've seen it so many times. Back when we did it, I can't remember if I worked on it or not. I might have, I might have done the revision when we got the new line.
So you're saying
Um,
there's a chance that if somebody has it, it might make
Somebody
it
might
to
have
movie
saved it.
matinee?
That somebody might have saved it. Someone come forward.
Please,
I'd
ladies
love
and
to get a
gentlemen, we need
copy.
help.
Yeah.
We need help. Well, like I said, Paul, man, this has been this has been a blast. I hope you had fun because I'd love
Oh,
to have you
one more
back
thing,
on
if I
and do.
could
Oh,
promote,
absolutely.
I just recently put a short film on my YouTube channel. It was a Halloween
Oh
project
shit, that's right.
by
Yes.
DNA Productions. It's called The Tale of Charlie Pumpkinhead.
Hmm.
And it's just like a little mini documentary and the storyboard animatic with a new audio track. And it came out pretty good, I think. So, and it was a lost project. And turns out the animator that wrote the project had saved the production art and storyboards, and he sent them to me. And while I was cleaning up the art to save, I thought, I could record a new soundtrack for this. It's probably better than the original soundtrack, and recreate the animatic. And so that's what I did.
Man,
Uh, got a
I
friend
can't
of
wait to
mine
go
to do
watch
the
it.
narration and found some great music and sound effects online and put it all together. So that's up now. I just put it up a few days ago.
Ladies and gentlemen, make sure you follow the links below and then go over and let Paul know what you thought about the little documentary, as well as his footage for all of the concerts, especially one in particular that you won't be able to find anywhere else of Led Zeppelin. Like I said, Paul, it's been a blast. Like I said, I hope you had fun, man, because I know I had fun. Thanks for everything you've done on Bob's, man. It's always fun when I can watch something for myself, and it's even something cooler when I get to watch it and share something with my family. You guys made it where it's not just a guy show, it's not just a girl show. It's a like I said, there's three different generations watching this show right now. This show will stand the test of time like it has for the last 15 years. Well, yeah, 15 years, 14 years, however long it's been. I know they're in season 15, but I think it's been like 14
I'm
or 15 years.
13, so yeah.
Yeah. Yeah,
Uh,
so it's been around for a little bit, and I hope continues to be around for a little bit. And I hope you get to stay on it for quite some time till it's done. You know what I mean?
Whenever I wear a T-shirt, Bob's T-shirt, we get a bunch of them from work. People always there's always someone that stops me and
Mhm.
says, "Oh, I love that show. I love that T-shirt." Oh,
What
great.
ended on that? Do you have a cool fan interaction story about walking around somebody realizing you worked on Bob or saw a Bob shirt and shared the story with you?
Not really. I've just had, people stop me if they see the T-shirt and say, "Oh, I
Yeah,
love that show. I think it's a really good show," and all that. So, yeah, it's always
that's
nice to
always
hear.
cool. Yeah,
Yeah.
it's always cool. Well, like I said, Paul, man, it's been a lot of fun. I'm gonna have you all those links, ladies and gentlemen, below for everything we've talked about in here, so you can point, click, and go and let Paul know what you think, man. Well, he's been Paul. I've been Julian. It's been a What's My Head podcast, and this has been another piece of your childhood. Good night.